To make our Snowy Trees card, we're going to start with a piece of craft, or now called crumb cake, cardstock from Stampin' Up. I've cut it 4 1/4 by 11 inches, and I've folded it in this portrait orientation so that it'll be a little easier to deal with the ribbon that goes around the bottom later on, but also, since we're going to be stamping directly on the base of the card, it will keep the back of the card up and out of our way while we're working. I'm using the Lovely as a Tree spruce stamp, and I've inked it up with some Mellow Moss ink. You can use any pretty green color. And I'm going to start my stamp by stamping the first tree about 1 1/4 inches up the card in the center. And then I want to create a shadow by moving the tree up and to the left a little bit to get a sort of a trees in the mist kind of look. I'm going to ink the stamp up again. It's getting a little dry. Stamp off on some scrap paper, and then do one more misty tree over on the right side of the card. So now these 3 trees, I want to take the center one and I want to give it a nice snowy look. I'm going to need to use the Stamp-A-Majig, this T-shaped tool from Stampin' Up, and you can get these other places as well. They come with a clear template which you stamp with your image, position everything, and then we'll use that on the card to perfectly align our white tree on top of our green one. So, I have some green ink here on my stamp. I'm going to position my Stamp-A-Majig, the clear sheet, up in the upper left-hand corner, put the block as far up in the upper left-hand corner as it will go, and then I have a template that I can use. Now I need to clean my green stamp, or green ink stamp. Okay. I'll lay the template on top of the tree that I have now and line everything up as much as I can. Position the Stamp-A-Majig again in the upper left-hand corner. Okay. And I now need some Whisper White craft ink. And when I ink this tree stamp this time, I'm going to get some all-over ink, but I'm mainly going to be concentrating on getting my ink on the outside edges of the tree and the top of the tree, where the snowfall would normally be the heaviest, because that's where I want the most white ink applied. Okay. Since I have the image lined up with the Stamp-A-Majig, I can just slide the clear template away, position my stamp up in the upper left corner again, and now I have a pretty snowy tree. And we're only going to add snow to the one in the middle, not to the 2 outside trees. We're now ready to stamp our greeting on vellum. We're going to be stamping the greeting with some soft suede ink. That was the color that worked the best with my ribbon. Other colors. Stamp your greeting in the middle of your vellum. And set that aside to dry, because anything that's stamped on vellum takes a little while to dry. Just like the craft ink on the card is going to take a little while to dry too, so we'll set it aside also. While that's drying, the other piece that's going on the bottom of the card is a piece of designer paper. This is in Always Artichoke, and I'm going to tear the bottom edge just a little bit, very small amount, off the bottom edge of a piece that's been cut 1 1/4 by 4 1/4, and I'm ready to attach this to the bottom of my card. I can use the grid lines on my paper to help me line this up. And then I'm ready to tear off some of the bottom of this greeting, this piece of vellum for the greeting. And I want to tear a little bit more this time so that some of the green will show underneath. And I'm going to apply this with just a little bit of adhesive. You can use the Monotombo glue, or you can use the tape runner adhesive. If you use the tape runner adhesive, you want to get the adhesive right on the very, very top edge. So I have this laying on some scrap paper so that I get adhesive just on the top edge. That way it'll be covered by the ribbon. And I've got a little excess here I need to trim off. And then I'm ready to tie my ribbon around and finish off my card. See why a portrait card is great, because it'll be really easy to tie this bow, and you can tie it in the center or off to one side, wherever you think it would look pretty. When we get our knot tied, we'll trim off the edges and we'll be ready for our last step. I have some Whisper White craft ink and a sponge dauber, and I'm just going to take some of the craft ink and run it along the edges. I'll slide my ribbon down out of the way here, and I'm just going to run it along the edges, and this makes such a difference in this card. It's just the perfect finishing touch to add that mist around the trees. And again, it doesn't dry immediately, so you want to try to keep your fingers out of it. Right over here to the edge. And put as much or as little ink on the edge as you would like. Slide the ribbon back in place. And I would probably tuck a glue dot under the knot of that ribbon to keep it from moving. And that's our snowy